Imagine what the world would look like without the aviation industry. Would we have significantly more cars, way less travel around the world? Would we be technologically behind in everything? Would we have a much cleaner environment? When you stop to think about it, the aviation industry has completely taken over the world. According to the NBAA, general aviation has contributed to $41.6 billion to America's GDP and $3.5 trillion to the world's GDP. But how exactly did aviation get to be this important? On December 17, 1903, Orville and Wilbur Wright made the very first successful powered flight. They were inspired by gliders, which are aircraft with no engine, but they created the very first fixed-wing airplane that had an engine and was propelled forward with thrust. Aviation had progressed for many years after this very first flight, and many others started to build experimental airplanes and flew them more leisurely around the world. Leading up to the time of World War II, this was all of general aviation. Technological advancements were on a fast track during World War II in order to keep up with the war. According to Jonah Bailey, by Simple Flying, airplanes followed the design of the monoplane, which you see here, which has lightweight metals, aluminum, enclosed cockpits. The body of the airplane was more aerodynamic, and it had retractable landing gear. Because of World War II, many technological advancements were able to take place and allow for the airplanes to be where they are today. Because of this, jet engines became way more powerful. There was aircraft pressurization, allowing flights to happen up high in sub-zero temperatures. The airports were much more developed, and eventually it led to more consistent airline operations. Because of this, time in history allowed for airplanes to become much more incredibly advanced. Over time, airplanes in the industry got bigger, faster, and stronger. Since they're so reliable, this became a very popular way for travel, and more airline companies started popping up. With millions today traveling by plane, the industry is thriving and better than ever, but we can't say the same for the environment. According to Richie at ourworldindata.org, aviation makes up 2.5% of emissions, but 3.5% when we take non-CO2 impacts into account. This might not sound like that much, but the rate of passengers traveling domestically in the United States goes up 4.8% each year, according to Kirby with the ICAS. Therefore, it's incredibly important technological advancements are made to slow the rate of climate change. Areas around the world are experiencing frequent natural disasters due to climate change, and an increase in use of airplanes is not going to help. Aviation is the most logical and popular form of transportation in America, but due to the overwhelming emissions left by the industry, technological advancements must be made to the aircraft in order for them to be most efficient. When I say the goal is to make aircraft more efficient, that means they're going to perform at a higher rate while releasing less emissions into the atmosphere. According to the North Central Institute, many companies are working alongside NASA to develop technologies associated with electrified aircraft propulsion research, which basically means it's a completely electric, zero-fuel aircraft. These aircraft are under development around the world and would lead to much less carbon emissions. As well, companies are working on replacing aluminum with titanium, graphite, and fiberglass to make aircraft lighter and therefore use less fuel. As well, aircraft parts are being 3D printed so they are lighter and cheaper to make, and as well for older planes, certain parts are much harder to find, so they can just be 3D printed, and it's also cheaper to make the aircraft more efficient. As well, structural health monitoring has become much more important. This is the analysis of systems over time to make sure there are no changes to them or their properties. This is important since crashes are normally fatal, and spending more time doing this will make sure the advancements being added to the airplanes will continue to work. The Airbus has plans to have zero-emission aircraft using hydrogen fuel cells by 2035. While there are many companies working to decarbonize aviation like NASA, there are many reasons why this may not be as successful. First, completely electric planes will generally only work for smaller aircraft due to the battery size and aviation laws. This means the larger the aircraft, it will still be burning tons of fuel like the airlines. There is also fear that aviation will forever be an extreme pollutant and will never become efficient enough to see a difference in the atmosphere. Basically, we've done all we can. And as well, there's simply nothing much more that can be done. The aircraft are as efficient as possible and too viable to the economy of the world to get rid of or to slow down. Climate change is aggressively getting worse and worse, and a change must be made now. Aviation is one of the biggest reasons for climate change and is also so important to the world and its economy that we just can't get rid of it. The only option is to find a more efficient way to fly. During World War II, aviation advanced so much in order to keep up with the war. From then on, advancements became even more impressive, allowing for aviation to be one of the most critical industries in the world. It accounts for a huge part of the country's GDP. As well, aviation is a large percent of emissions in the atmosphere. By using the current rate of emissions going into the atmosphere and the rate at which aviation is burning fuel, it's apparent aviation is a huge problem. Since this industry is so important and contributes a huge amount to society every day, it leads to the fact that the industry pollutes an insane amount. Therefore, since change must be made, there needs to be technological advancements made to the planes to allow them to be more efficient and have less emissions in the atmosphere. We have a very limited time to fix the already progressing climate change, and these subtle changes to the airplanes will be the answer to the problem at hand. As well, aviation is one of the, if not the most important ways to travel. Therefore, cutting these emissions will have a huge effect on the world. There are more natural disasters around the world because of climate change, and the average temperature of countries is rising rapidly. We humans have only a few years before the effects of climate change can no longer be reversed. With that said, it's very important that we keep track of the technological advancements that have been made through the years and what will happen in the future. This way we can focus more on the environment and make sure that these advancements are catering towards the already progressing climate change in the atmosphere.